passages that we read about the false prophet. He's linked to the beast every time. He performs miracles. He deceives men. He's linked to the mark of the beast. And he commands men to worship the image of the beast. Why have we read all that information before? Because it does have a precedent. These are echoes from earlier in the book of Revelation. It's in chapter 13. The description of the earth beast in Revelation chapter 13 from verse 11 onwards. He's linked to the sea beast. He has power to do miracles. He deceives those who are on the earth. He causes men to receive the mark of the beast, and he causes men to worship the image of the beast. So the false prophet of Revelation chapter 16 is described using the same symbology as the earth beast of Revelation chapter 13. Now, that earth beast in Revelation 13 had two horns. We saw in Daniel 8 that horns are a symbol of power. The two horns on the ram are the kings of Media and Persia. And the he-goat, when he came against them, broke the two horns, the text says, of the ram. And then the great horn on the goat, which represented Alexander the Great, was broken. Alexander the Great died, and his four generals took over. So, what happened in history? Well, that's what happened. On the 25th of December, 800, Charlemagne, the king of the Franks, was crowned by Pope Leo III. You might say, well, he's already king of the Franks. He's already got a crown on his head. But this crown was the crown of the emperorship of Europe. Charlemagne was crowned by the Pope, Emperor of Europe. Now, just look at that painting and look at the elevations of the two men. There's the Pope up here, and Charlemagne's down there. What's that indicating in symbol? That the Pope has greater power and authority than Charlemagne. He is able to bestow the emperorship upon Charlemagne. Remember in Hebrews chapter 7, when Melchizedek blesses Abraham, Hebrews says the less is blessed of the greater. And that's the symbology there. So Charlemagne is crowned Emperor of Europe. And there he is. And there's another bit of symbology. Look what he's holding in his right hand and his left hand. And have you seen that picture before tonight, this afternoon? Yes, you have. In Brother Peter's slide of Vladimir the Great. He was holding a sword in his right hand and an orb surmounted by a cross in his left. And Vladimir the Great did exactly what Charlemagne did. Because Charlemagne, by the force of his sword, compelled people to accept the cross of Christ and become Catholics. So did Vladimir the Great. That's the symbology of Charlemagne. So we now have an emperor of Europe. We now have a European empire with two horns, two powers, the Pope and the Emperor. That's our earth beast in Revelation 13 verse 11. And we've seen that the language of the earth beast of Revelation 13 verse 11 onwards reappears in Revelation 16 in relation to the false prophet. So how does that work? Well, we've looked at Napoleon. Napoleon had his meteoritic career in which he flashed across the stage of Europe for a brief period of time. And then he was defeated in the Battle of Waterloo by the Duke of Wellington. The Pope was released from prison and went back to Rome and resumed his popeship. But the empire had gone. But the Pope did have 3 states in Italy that he ruled over, so he was still a temporal power. He was still an earthly ruler. And then in 1870, the Italian army captured the Papal States and the city of Rome, and the Pope became, in his own words, a prisoner in the Vatican. But in the same year, 1870, the cardinals of the Roman Catholic Church decreed that when the Pope sat in his chair and spoke concerning faith and morals, it was the voice of God. He spoke infallibly. When he spoke ex cathedra from the chair. So now he's no longer a temporal ruler. All he is a man, speaking ostensibly great things. He's just a false prophet. The former horn of the earth beast is now reduced to the state of just a prophet. And that echoes back to Daniel chapter 7, the little horn with a mouth. He's only a little horn. He's still a power, because the Vatican state is actually a state. It's the smallest state in the world. It's just a sort of Vatican enclave within Rome. But the Pope rules it as head of state. So when the Pope came to these islands recently, he was received by the Queen as head of state, which he is. He's not just the Pope of the Catholic Church. He also rules the Vatican. So let's look again now at the identifications of the false prophet, which are given to us within the book of Revelation. We saw that Islam doesn't fit. Let's see now how the papacy does. First of all, the time period, 1793 to the present day. And it was in this period that the papacy lost its temporal power and was declared infallible. So the events which turned the horn of the earth beast into the false prophet occurred within this time frame of Revelation chapter 16. He's linked with the Roman beast. Well, that's absolutely the case. We'll have a look at the Pope and Europe in a minute. But European Union founded on the Treaty of Rome. And the papacy is totally pro the European project, as we shall see shortly. He works miracles before the beast and deceives his worshippers. And the papacy has long claimed miracles. The Catholic Church has long claimed miracles. They've just established, to their own satisfaction, that Pope John Paul II performed 2 miracles. So that entitles him to be made a saint. One of those miracles apparently was appearing out of the page of a magazine and healing a woman in Central America. But it's convinced them that he's a saint. But miracles, yes, they certainly claim miracles. And then the identity of origin. That this system would come from within the ecclesia and work to corrupt it. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. That day shall not come except there be an apostasy, a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who sits in the temple of God, who sits on a chair, speaking ex cathedra, claiming that he is God. And you can find a Catholic text in which they talk about him saying, "Our Lord God the Pope." And he's going to appear, says the text of 2 Thessalonians 2, when he who letteth has been taken out of the way. And that prophecy in 2 Thessalonians 2 was understood in the 2nd century AD. And Tertullian in Carthage wrote to the Christians that they should pray for the continuance of the paid